Looks like we're coming into week 5 for us here. Today we're going to be talking about inside of like how do we prioritize, what are going to be some of the things in our life, and what are some of the cool tools that exist for us out there with being able to hit those extra priorities, because I think we've all felt it from time to time, right? Where it's like, we only have, so much time coming into each week. So how are we going to prioritize around some of those things? And then wrapping up from last week was we were talking about last week, as you guys will remember, we were talking about, hey, what are these visions that we have for our life? What's our 5-year vision, our 1-year vision, our 1-month vision, our 1-week vision? What's the number one goal that we have for today? And as you can see, coming into this week, we're going to be talking about the prioritization of what are those important things. I don't know if you guys have ever run into this before, but as I'm sure you have you ever had that opportunity where you look at there and you say, wow, there's 1,000 things on my to-do list. There's 1,000 things that I actually need to get done, and I actually need them all done now. And it's overwhelming. And that what that leads to, or it can lead to, right, is that feeling of overwhelming stress or anxiety or fear that something bad is going to happen, because in your mind, the way it's crafted around what are the things that need to happen are all prioritized as if they are the same, and they're all stated in your mind that they all need to happen right now. And when we get into that place where we feel like everything needs to happen right now and we don't have clear priorities, like what typically happens to us? What typically happens to us whenever we're in that kind of space into it? Leah, have you ever been in that space before?
A million times. I think you're actually less productive because you start to almost panic, and you're shuffling around, and you're trying to multitask, which is really less effective than it sounds. Listening to, let's say, a call while you're trying to work on something else, forget it, you're going to do neither well. So for sure.
Yeah. So we get into it. So it sounds like from Leah's experience over here is like, hey, well, that actually leads to is we start doing other weird compensating behaviors like, well, I have so much to get done, I'll start to multitask. And then when I start to multitask, actually the quality of everything drops. And because the quality of everything dropped, sure, I got to check it off of my to-do list, but what happens tomorrow and the next day as all of those things that I kind of did halfway well catch up to me? And eventually now I've just probably all I've done is just created chaos for myself tomorrow so I could feel good today into it. Yeah. So we come into it today as like coming full circle into it. So I says, well, great. Well, of course, when we look what we looked at last week is that it's so important for us to know what is it that we want and what are those goals that we have, what drives us forward with the areas of life that we care most about, tying back into the fishes, the goals we set for those. But in the pursuit of those goals of what it is that we are going to do, then there comes into, well, great, there's only so many things I can get done. So how do I know and how do I think through what are going to be the most important things for me to get done? So I want to talk about, before we get into going into our breakout rooms, I want to talk about and just hear a little bit more from you all about what does that actually look like when we come into having so many things that we want to do, right? And that we're looking to try to do all of them all at the same time. And we don't have the priority set in place for what needs to happen. Has anybody felt like, man, I'm awesome at checking things off the list, but when I really get honest with myself, it wasn't the most important things that got checked off? I see Charlie smiling there too. Yeah, into it. Yeah. Common, right? I can feel good about my day as long as I check things off my list, because I can say, hey, I was good today. Look at what I did. But did I really get what I wanted? Or did I do the easy thing? And that's what prioritization, true quality prioritization, focus the attention, not on just the things I could do, but are like, what are the few critical things that must be done for it to be successful? And those are actually conversations that we have inside of Royal Legal Solutions. Me and Gina are super hot on side of that, of like, how do we operate together as a team and as a company? Because there's so many ideas and there's so many things that we could do, that getting down into the prioritization becoming really, really, really important for us. Gina, I was wondering if you could share with us a little bit from like your leadership and business development type framework, and maybe to the extent that you feel like appropriate, of some of the things that happens inside of like RLS or other stories you might have about like how important is it around, yeah, of course you got to get to the goals, you got to get to the visions, you got to get to the action steps, but then, you know, where does it, like the prioritization become so important?
Yeah, so hey everybody, so good to see you. I think it's going to tie in with some of the discussion that we started last week, was around the SMART goals, right? Because if you don't first understand where you're trying to go, then how are you going to possibly know what's a priority, right? So it starts with making sure that you're very clear and confident in understanding what your goals are. What do you really want to achieve? And are those, achievable, but still a little bit stretch? So it starts there. And then one of the things that I think many of you, I've heard you kind of reference, is that many of you have really great ideas, and you come up with all these great ideas, and what we'll call shiny objects or squirrels or whatever it is, right? The next newest thing. And so it's much more fun. And this is the conversation that Scott and I have all the time. He's definitely the visionary of the company, and he has all these new ideas. And I'm like, okay, those are all great, but like, which one is going to be the most important one that's going to drive the biggest results that we're looking to get in whatever time frame we're looking at? That's no different than what you're doing with your business. So it's really being able to assess what's the one most important thing in the time frame that you're looking in that you feel like is going to make the biggest mark in your progression forward. And then the discipline comes in that says, okay, what are all the things? What are all my ideas? Because you need to get all your ideas in one place. So we've come up with a solution for Scott to just, okay, Scott, whatever you're thinking, put it in one place and I'll know it's there. But then we're always going to come back and say, okay, which one's most important? You do the same thing, because oftentimes I think we feel like we're constrained. Especially if you're a visionary, you feel like you're constrained if you can't get your ideas out. So if you're that type of person, make sure you're writing all your ideas somewhere or typing them somewhere, but then always go back to, how is this going to get me to the goal that I set over here? Because what usually happens, and why I see us, including myself, sometimes not meet my goals, is because maybe the goal got hard or the goal got boring or whatever. And I'm like, I want to go over here. That's just or it's just too hard. I'm going to go over here because this is easier. But you've got to always go back to the goal. Always go back to the goal. Because if that goal is serious, if you're serious about that goal, then everything you do needs to be prioritized based off that goal. So that's kind of that's the play that Scott and I, it's the fine dance that Scott and I do quite often as we're trying to implement changes for RLS. And it'll work for you too and your business. And if you have people working with you in your business, you'll want to make sure they're aligned to those as well. Because as a leader, one of the things you have to do is prioritize and make sure people are working on the things that are most valuable to you.
Well, so this is something that I have internally here inside of RLS, is that I can afford to pay a Gina to come and hang out with me and help me, right? But not everybody can, right? That comes into it. So it's always interesting for me, whenever I think about where do I want to go in there, as how sometimes in my mind, and actually way more in the past than it does currently, I'll always tell myself, I can't get to that place because I don't have money to do it. I can't afford it. It's a great system, but I can't afford it, whatever it is. So wouldn't it be an interesting concept if it was possible to be able to have that balance we're describing between visionary versus executor or prioritization or operations person? And how could we do that in a way that we either do that for ourselves or we're able to do that in a way that doesn't cost us any money? What would that have to look like? Tell that. So I'm gonna offer that to you for food for thought, that there's a way to do that. and that we can come out of today's meeting with some really clear ways that you're actually going to be able to build that part of your life with somebody else and be able to do that in a way that's not going to cost you any money. And it's going to be a proven way that I've seen to be effective off of it over and over and over again, not just inside of Royal Legal Solutions, but also in other groups that I've worked with. So that'll be part of the process here today, is we're going to be walking away with like, hey, this is exactly what I need to go walk away from with today to be able to know that I'm going to have this kind of tool, this kind of support system built into my life. But to be able to get to that step, which is the execution step, we first have to build the awareness. And that's what we're going to be working on today. So we're going to start off, guys, with the breakout session, just like we always do. And there, the breakout session is going to tie back into the reminder of the things that we worked on in last week, just like we always do. And then when we come back in, we're going to be taking that concept into the next level, which for us today is going to be around prioritization. So Gina is going to go ahead and kick us off with the prompts for the breakout groups. And guys, we're a little bit short today on total attendees coming in. So if anybody from the Royal Legal Solutions team wants to join in with any of the group members, feel free to do that, to be able to help participate, as well as keep the energy up and moving forward for us, guys. Yeah. So Gina, go ahead and take us away.
Yep. So because, as I said, being clear on your goals is so important to effectively prioritizing what you're working. What I'm going to invite you to do in your breakout sessions is to just pick one of your SMART goals. Now, we're encouraging you to do 1 to 5 for your quarter, but for your breakout session, pick the one that's the most important to you to complete between now and the end of first quarter, if you can, right? In that time fence. It may be that you just continue it in Q2, but let's just stick at what's the one thing that you feel like of your SMART goals is most important. And let's remind ourselves what a SMART goal is. It's specific, measurable, attainable. Attainable is a key word, relevant, and time bound, right? And so I've given you the time bound. I'm going to encourage you to do that within this quarter if possible. And then share with your team what that SMART goal is, your breakout group, what that SMART goal is, and have them tell you whether that sounds like a SMART criteria goal or not, right? Does it meet the SMART criteria? And Ken has shared that. Thank you, Ken, those directions in your chat, if for whatever reason you don't recall that. So, because that will make sure whatever that goal is, we'll want you to consider that as Scott is sharing in the latter part of the call on the prioritization method. And with that, any questions before we break out? Awesome. Page 3 of the planner. Thank you, Scott. I had my planner here. So page 3 of the planner, we're good. All right, Ken, ready to send people to breakouts. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. So how was that exercise? I know normally we ask you to report back, but because what I'm finding is we're leaving only about 2 seconds time for the content. We want to just try to be a bit more mindful, but is there any insights that any of you got in doing that exercise, having somebody review your SMART goal, any feedback that you got? Was that valuable to you, or did you get any insights from it? Anybody have anything they want to add? Okay, just giving people space. Oh yeah, Charlie, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say this. It was an excellent opportunity because in my case, I had Connie and she's going to present for us, but in my case, she basically said everything that I wanted to do that she's doing, but in better detail.
Yeah, so, that's good.
Yeah, so we had a common thread going there, right? So, but it was good because you get some good feedback from the team to try to hone down everything to where you want to be, right? So,
yeah. And I think that specific piece of the SMART goals is the piece that most people, including myself, sometimes forget. to make it specific, right? Because the specificity, well, you know, whatever I'm trying to say, that word,
Right.
that word, I'll get it in a little bit, specificity, there it is what really allows us to prioritize and really make the thing come into fruition. Because if we can't really see it and we can't describe it, then it's really just an idea. It's not really a goal.
Right.
So great feedback. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Connie, do you have something you want to share, or is everybody comfortable moving on to the content? I don't want to cut anybody off, but I also want to make sure we're giving ourselves space to get to the good content. Go ahead,
Yes,
Connie.
Charlie was really good about giving Robert feedback on the realistic part of his goal. You know, is your goal really realistic in this time frame? It depends on the homework that you've done. So that was really good feedback. But yeah, I think it's fine to move on to the content.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I just encourage you all to take that same exercise for yourself, or we also want you all to know that, you know, you're free to share your information with other people and create your own buddy system, accountability system, whatever you want. We just don't want to do that, because usually if we do that for you, it's not as valuable as if you do it yourself. But if you feel like you want those sounding boards, that's part of the community we're allowing you to build as well. So, you know, if you want to do that, then just feel free while you're in these meetings to privately chat with someone to say, hey, can I get your contact information? That is something, you know, but we don't want to force fit you guys into that. But if that's very helpful, because we all know that feedback from other people, especially if they're like-minded people, is invaluable. And that's one of the reasons we're doing what we're doing. All right, so Scott keeps coming in and there he is. Are you ready to turn it over to you, Scott, now?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, got it.
Yeah, guys, so I think one of the most powerful things that I've seen, and not something that we've actually been beating the drum around, and probably will end up getting into it more as like a focus attention coming in next quarter, but is the idea of being like, who are going to be your 2 to 3 other like accountability partners about what it is you're doing. And what the way that I've seen people typically do that really works is usually on some type of periodic basis, maybe like once a month. They go through and they establish, great, well, here's what we see as a core focus that all 4 of us are really focused on, right? And then that gives you that type of touch point of, you know, who do you click with and what is that pod of people going to be able to accomplish together. So if it's something that strikes you as, hey, great, like there would be some great conversations to be had about really narrowing down the focus on how do we execute better. That's a great opportunity to bring it to your pod. Highly suggest that like pods or groups of people you bring together aren't social groups. These are business relationships. They're around a common objective that you're looking to achieve together, and that you're then bound together in that unity of purpose of like, what are we coming towards? So that way that there's always like that level of intentionality that we bring to it. Great. So shifting gears, guys, from the goals that we had set that we just remind ourselves from, go ahead and you should have that goal written down either inside of your planner or in some other resource that you have to be able to say, great, here's my SMART goal I have. And great. So coming off of the SMART goals that we have, there's going to be a number of items of what are the action steps that I need to do that's going to be surrounding that SMART goal. So today, what we're going to be looking at with that, I'm going to show you guys here what it looks like here inside of the planner. This is on page 210 of your planner. You'll see that there's a couple of different like key pieces to this section of the planner. This one's titled the templates to help you make decisions, prioritize, plan, and act. What we're specifically going to be focusing on today is going to be this piece. This is going to be what we call it's an Eisenhower box into it. So if you go to 210 of your planner, you'll get to the Eisenhower box. And here's how powerful the Eisenhower box is. The Eisenhower box is so powerful that it was President Eisenhower that this was the #1 thing he did, both to become president of the United States and how to lead a country of people. And this would be always his go-to practice to be able to decide what needs to happen for us to be able to be effective right? So the strengths of the tools that we're talking about here aren't just strengths that I think that are good or that Gina thinks that are good. No, we've stolen all of these things from people who are much more wildly successful than us. And they're going to say, great, we're going to do those things because they're time tested and they're proven by people that have already done great things and have already maybe lived lives that we want to live or being able to accomplish the kinds of big ideas that we want to accomplish. And that's why it's so important that we use these tools and we take them seriously. It's because in doing that is where we end up being able to pick up the clues of success and institute them into our lives. Okay, great. So looking here, guys, into this Eisenhower box, there's a couple of key areas that you're going to see here. Let's see if I can get this camera to cooperate with me here. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is you take a blank piece of paper, what we have here, and I want you to make a big quadrant, big 4-quarter quadrant that you got. Any blank piece of paper. If you don't have a blank piece of paper, grab your journal and grab a dot page they have in the journal or flip to the back. You know, any place where you have a blank piece of paper, or if you're really savvy and you really know your journal, you'll also know that it's on page 214 as a template of where the Eisenhower box actually is located inside of a template inside of your journal. But if you don't have a journal with you and you just need to make some quick decisions, so what you're going to do then is you're going to label the top part of your top part of your piece here as urgent. This box here is not urgent. Then we flip it to its side here, and this is important. And this is not important. So the top left box of our journal is all our top left box of our Eisenhower box here. These are all the things that are important and urgent. These are your top number 1 to-do items. Then you have what's going to be the important and the not urgent. And then you're going to have not important and urgent. So when you look at these two boxes, these are the two boxes, the important and not urgent, and the not important and urgent. That's where you have to make a game time decision. What am I going to do? We'll always do the important and urgent first. Always. Why would you ever not do the important and urgent things? You might have to decide, am I going to do the not urgent and important piece, or am I going to prioritize the not important and urgent? And anything that falls into this 4th box here, that's not important and not urgent, those are things you just should never do. Just take them off of the to-do list because they're actually not that important. So looking back at our goal, let's say that I had a goal here of, I don't know, what's a goal that we could pick? Somebody give me a goal. Who's got a goal that they picked up from today they want to talk about here in the group? And we'll walk through one together.
I'll give you mine. It's pretty easy. And that is to acquire in Q1 a property in Ohio.
Cool. So you have acquiring Q1 a property in Ohio. Cool. So first test that we have here for Robert is this a SMART goal? And what of this goal tells us that this is more or less a SMART goal? Charlie, what parts of like a SMART goal relate to Robert's goal here that you can see?
Well, I think he's looking at the measurable value, and attainability, relevance, and of course the time bound nature of being able to get done in the first quarter.
What part of this tells you that it's time bound?
The doing it in the first quarter.
Yep, in Q1.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is it going to be measurable for Robert?
When you say measurable, Scott, what are you specifically talking about when you're talking about tracking the progress?
I'll tell you right now. The measurable means if we go back to our page 3 here, measurable means quantifiable.
The tracking part of the process, right?
Yep. Measurable mean quantifiable. Can I objectively know that something is true or not true?
Yeah, the thing that I shared with Robert was that the challenge on the measurable part is you can control what you can, but you cannot control.
Well, we're just
What
talking
cannot,
about whether the
right.
goal, can we know
Yeah.
whether this goal is met in a way that we can know is objectively true or not true? And if so, how would we know?
Yeah, because he either did it or he didn't do it.
He
It's
either
measurable.
has a property in his name or he doesn't.
Right,
Connie?
right.
Yeah. Connie picking up the assist for Charlie. Good way to go, teammate. Working here together. Love to see that.
Thank you, dear.
Yeah, there we go. So we got here that it's measurable. He either has it or he doesn't. We know it's time bound in Q1. Is this goal relevant to Robert? Robert, what is this goal relevant to? Like, what if we acquire this property and acquire a new property in Q1 in Ohio? What is this goal relevant to?
But this goal is in support of my annual goal to acquire 5 properties, which is in support of my 2-year goal to acquire 10 properties. So
Cool. Awesome. All right, so this is super relevant. Robert's actually said, hey, cool, I got actually a 2-year goal to acquire 10 properties. I have a 1-year goal to acquire 5 properties. This goal to acquire a new property in Q1 in Ohio is relevant to both my yearly and my 2-year goal. Sounds pretty freaking relevant to me. And do it, right? It's direct. It's about as direct as you can get. So cool, looks like it's relevant. All right, how attainable is it to be able to acquire a new property within this quarter in Ohio? Does that feel more or less attainable for us? Like, what's our gut? What's your gut feel? Probably pretty attainable, right? We don't have any stipulations about what that property is. Doesn't have to have some type of amazing cash on cash performance. Doesn't have anything. It's just a property that comes into it. Possible to buy a property in Ohio in Q1? Heck yeah, that's possible. We're gonna do it. Here's the last part. Specific. How specific is this goal? Is any property gonna meet your 10-year property goals, or actually something else, Robert?
probably not. It probably needs to be cash flowing. But being the first step along the way, I figured that being a little vague on the first goal might serve me, just in terms of it's always that first step that is the challenging one. So I left it a little vague, I guess intentionally, but it's a good point.
So I'll tell you what, we're gonna run through the exercise here together, and you're gonna see, I'm gonna show you firsthand about why not having specificity on the front end is gonna cause you problems. Okay, cool. So now we actually have a thing, which is now we have a new consideration for us around our goal here, which is gonna be around what is this property? So what is the property that is the right property? So if, Robert, I came to you and I said, hey, listen, Robert, now we're going to switch roles. Okay. You're my consultant. Okay. You're going to empower me to success, whatever the goal is going to be here. And I came to you and I said, hey, Robert, I'm going to pay you $5,000. You're going to help me be able to reach my goal here. You say, great. And I said, great. I want to acquire a new property in Ohio. And you say, great, I can do that. Pop on MLS. I'll find you a property. And then you bring it back to me and you say, hey, Scott, I found a property. One of the walls has fallen down. It's infested with mold. It's a great rate. Great price that I can get you on it. There you go, bud. I got your property. Thank you very much. Can I please have my $5,000? You probably say, wait, that's not what I meant. All right, so what did you mean? Let's spell it out. What does it mean? What did you mean if it wasn't a mold infested fallen down building?
Yeah, that's great. So I need a property that I mentioned the cash flow, and in that regard, what I mean is either a property that I can do a short-term rental or a long-term rental with minimal rehab, right? So I could probably put a limit on that, a dollar limit and a time limit. But that's really what I'm after.
Okay. So for the purposes of this exercise, let's not say that we have to get it perfect, but let's get really specific. So when we say it's
Okay.
going to cash flow for us, how do we understand what that means? How do we understand what cash flow means to you in terms of what your goals are? Is cash flows like a percentage of cash on cash return? Is a specific dollar amount that you need it to hit? What do you need it to cash flow? What way is this term called cash flow successful or not successful?
Good. So let's say that after the loan payment and the expenses, it brings in $500 of profit each month.
Okay. And so if I came to you, Robert, I'm gonna keep drilling down a little bit more complexity here and or a little bit more in detail. So we said after loans expenses, I want this baby to give me $500 in monthly cash flow into it. And I say, okay, great, Robert. You've now asked me to do that for you again. I've now gone out there. I found you a $10 million property that you can buy. The expenses and everything on it are sky high into it. It's only going to give you about a 0.1% cash on cash return, but it's going to give you $500 a month in profit. Can I have my $5,000, please?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to say, no, that is not what I meant into it. So great. So tell me, what did you mean?
So I guess we ought to set a price band, right? So let's say between 250 and 500.
So you want to buy it between 250 and 500,000.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so now I got a price band. It's like, cool, I got at least a loose profit margin in here. And we had one other piece that we had in here, which is minimal rehab. And there's a question of how much are we going to spend on rehab and how long is rehab going to take? So
Yeah.
what do you want that to be, Robert?
Let's say 30,000 rehab and less than 3 months.
And then I say less than 3 months. Does this mean that this property is rented within 3 months of the time you acquire it?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. So this is the beginnings of a SMART goal. This is the beginnings of S into it. So let me show you the difference between what actually happens here. So let's go ahead and diagram it out both ways, guys. No cheating. No cheating on this. So let's draw out our Eisenhower boxes. And Robert, thanks for playing guinea pig with us today.
Sure.
Into it. You're going to be, because you're the one that volunteered, you're the one that gets all the benefit of going through the process. So well done on having the gusto of coming forward with that. Okay, cool. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and say, great. Let's go ahead and figure out what are our tasks. So our tasks for Robert are going to be around this property I have here. What is the right property? This is the property we're looking for to be able to acquire in Q1. These are the constraints that we know about. $500 a month in profit, price range between 250 and 500K. Can't have more than $30,000 in rehab costs and can't take more than 3 months to be able to produce the rehab, to be able to complete the rehab. So great. So now Robert has a clear goal, our clear enough goal to start taking action on and seeing what happens. Now we need to come into is like, what are the tasks? What are the things that Robert actually needs to do to be able to execute on that goal? So let's just go ahead and brainstorm it out here. What are those tasks? from what you know about your real estate investing experience, what tells you what those tasks are going to be? What's the first thing that he would want to do? I'll give you a hint. Whoops. First thing is always going to be deal flow as a category. Because how do you find this deal without deal flow? So when you think about deal flow, when we all think about deal flow here, what are the things that we think about, like how to increase our deal flow to be able to find this kind of property? How do we think that we would help Robert? Say, if we were advising Robert, we'd say, hey, great, what is the type of deal flow and how are you going to generate that deal flow to find that property? What's been successful for you in the past? Robert,
First thing I noticed is that I talk to everybody about property. That has been the primary source of opportunities in this area.
Okay, so talking to existing network, what other way do we increase deal flow?
Yeah, not just existing network. So for example, I parked for a football game last year, and I saw that this guy had this, he had his parking in his yard over by the stadium, and he had this big old warehouse behind his house. And I said, is that yours? I just started the conversation. It was built, in 1901, been in his family 3 generations. And I drove by there the other day and I left him a note and he called me back. I just left him a note and said, hey, I was the guy that you were telling about this building, curious if you guys have given it any thought as to whether or not you might want to part with it. Anyway, so that's talking to new people, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be like a cold solicitation of some sort, right? Finding people out there in the world. I don't know them yet, but we had a conversation enough to say, hey, listen, I'm going to start trying to generate an opportunity with you. Yeah. Someone there, right? So we probably also have realtors we could talk to. Is realtors really real right now? Our realtors are out because it's too mainstream. It's not going to give us the profitability we're looking for. What's your feel for that, Robert?
My feel is if it makes it to the MLS, it's probably not a deal. But realtors often have insight into opportunities before they are listed. So I would say realtors are a possibility.
So it's realtors, not good unless it's off market.
Yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah. Okay. Any other avenues we have to be able to source deal flow as a team? What about like just talking to like other RLS members inside of like Discord channels or joining in any of the group coaching? And who might have properties they want to buy or sell inside of any of our networking parts that we have inside of each of our group coaching. That might be a place to look at too. Be able to check it out. Well, let's go ahead and just take one of these into it. Robert, what's your feel for what is going to be the most successful out of these 4 if you were just going to target one for right now?
Probably existing network.
Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead and just focus in on existing network on our task list. This is what you would call a strategy, right? This is our strategic play to get deal flow. Our objective now is deal flow. Our strategy to get that is to talk to existing network. And now what we're going to get into is our Eisenhower box that's going to talk to us about what are we going to do to be able to do that. So now we have here at the top of our Eisenhower box, it's talk to existing network. Great. And here's what I'd like us to do, guys. So we have this thing called talking to existing network that Robert's going to do, right? And the thing to talking to existing network, there's going to be things that are important and urgent, things that are important and not urgent, things that are not important but urgent, and things that are not important and not urgent. That's part of our quad. That's part of our box here. So let's just go ahead and start working through what some of these things might be to be able to help promote us into talking to existing network as an initiative of Eisenhower. So Robert, what is the number one most important and urgent thing for you to do when it comes to talking to your existing network to be able to generate the deal flow you're looking for?
Make sure my network knows that I'm looking for a property.
So make sure the network knows. What else is important and urgent?
Probably that I cultivate that network relationship.
Okay. So what would be important and not urgent about being able to use this existing network to find your deal? Is that stumpy? Does that feel a little stumpy right now?
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Yeah. I'm gonna hand it to you. Here's why. Because these aren't urgent.
Because they're not urgent.
They're not urgent.
Gotcha.
These things right here are actually important, but not urgent. They actually belong over here. The important and urgent is 10 phone calls to these people. That's important and urgent. It's action. It has to happen. It needs to happen today for this to be successful.
Gotcha.
Yeah. This
It's like
is
when,
one page describing the asset I'm looking for. So that way, when I'm talking to any of my network, they can see clearly what it is I'm looking for and they can keep an eye out for it. Remember when we did this exercise here? Whoops, I just ripped that paper. This exercise here that it had to be specific, measurable, all of those. Well, when you're going to ask your network who has a deal, what are you going to tell them? Probably need to tell them what it is you're looking for, right? If you tell them I'm looking for a property in Ohio, well, they're going to say, oh, great, I can find you properties in Ohio, just like we role played earlier, right? So if the idea here is to use the existing network, what is the important and urgent things that have to happen to make this activity successful? Into it.
somebody calls me with an opportunity, probably pretty urgent, I respond that call timely.
Important and urgent would be return phone calls on leads, right?
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. Return phone calls on leads is the number one thing to do. Cultivating leads and returning phone calls on leads is the way you make money. It's the way things happen, the way you make deals happen, right? All right, so let's talk about some potential things. So the important and urgent things are the things that says these must happen to drive me closer to the goal. The important but not urgent things are the things that we say, these things would be really helpful if they happen, but they don't need to happen now. Yeah, that might be like this one pager here that I just described. That's like, hey, this is specifically what I'm looking for. That could be important, not urgent. Because what might be the most important thing for Robert is, hey, are you actually just getting on the phone to talk to people? Are you following up on leads or are you recruiting more leads? That's more important and urgent. Let's just shift everything over to the things, other things that here might be important and not urgent. Great. So let's shift down to this box that we have here, which is going to be important. Oops, sorry. I want to make sure I get this right here. What the exact wording I have in here. Okay. These things down here that we have in this box, bottom left-hand quadrant, this is the not important, but urgent. It's not important to the goal, but it's urgent. These are typically like fires that I have to put out. Right? That's what I have here in the book. It's like putting out fires. This could be saying like, well, I really need to talk to my existing network to put out a deal, but you know what I actually have to do is I have to figure out the eviction of a current tenant. The eviction of the current tenant is weighing on my mind. It's a fire that I have to put out. And that this thing is actually, it's pulling my attention away from what my goal is about being able to do the important and urgent thing, which is making the phone calls I need to make into it, or to be able to make the quality of the conversations I'm having better, which would be over here. Yeah. And I'm struggling with this thing called the eviction of the current tenant, which is, it's not important to my goal here of this existing network. It's not important to that, but it feels urgent for me to deal with this tenant issue. Yeah. And because it feels important for me to deal with this tenant issue, then what'll happen is I'll actually go solve this tenant issue before I make my phone calls. Yeah. So what does that actually mean? It actually means at the end of the day, what did I do? Well, I dealt with the thing that I felt, but I didn't actually get closer to the goal. I didn't drive the key behavior I needed to get me closer to this goal, which was facilitating deal flow through my network. And then we can have some things that are not important and not urgent that could be as part of your business. What could some of those things be? What are the things that might pull your attention, Robert, into it that say, well, they're reasonably related to this goal, but when I really get down to it, it's not important and it's not urgent?
Maybe calls about opportunities that are not quite in the description that I'm looking for.
Calls on unqualified opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about meetings? Do you have meetings that are other not urgent and not important?
Yep.
Yeah. What kind of meetings do those typically turn out to be?
Operational stuff.
Some types of operational meetings.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll put on an extra couple here, guys, just for you guys, just of what things I typically see. What I typically see people say is, I need to work on my website. I need to reformat my logo. I need all this other stuff. That'll come into it. It's not important. It's not urgent. These aren't the things that keep you from being able to make the phone calls that you need to make to be able to drive your deal network as they come through. So be on the watch out for anything that's over here or what could be pushed here. And your goal when working through this exercise is to always be stripping everything you possibly can out of the top left quadrant. You want the top left quadrant, you want everything moved out of the top left quadrant besides the absolute minimum of things that come into the top left quadrant, because the top left quadrant is your prioritization. Those are the things that you have to do first and get done first before you focus on anything else. Okay, does anybody's brain feel like it's about to melt with what we just went through? Thank you, Robert, for allowing us to learn from and with you as we work through that piece. I hope that was valuable for you.
Yeah, it's very helpful.
Awesome. So what I'd invite everybody to do is to start to practice on these tools. I think probably everybody felt maybe coming into this meeting that it was like, oh no, cool, I got SMART goals. Right? When Gina asked, like, hey, does anybody, any awarenesses on SMART goals? We said, no, got it. Good. SMART goals. Great. Eisenhower Box? Sure. Sort the importance. How hard can that be? So I hope everybody had a feel for today about the difficulty level and the specificity that's needed when using these tools to be able to drive them. I also want to encourage you to say, this is not about perfection. It's not about being able to do this as well as I do. I've had years of doing this. Right? So for me, this is like breathing, right? For you, this is a new skill. And the way to learn new skills is to get with other people that are learning the new skills and struggle with them. Struggle with how do you do it? Ask the questions. And inside of the questions is where you start to be able to develop the intuition. And you get through to the intuition that you need through the work of actually doing it. And work in this context always means pen to paper. If you're not doing pen to paper, you're not doing anything when it comes to this kind of work. It's always got to be pen to paper. Always think on paper. Better than thinking on paper is using an actual tool. Use the Eisenhower boxes. Start being very specific with your SMART goals and writing them out into it. And if you start to do that, then you'll start to be able to reap the benefits of being able to be much faster through the conversations. Let's just take through a hypothetical scenario. Imagine that Robert here is in this scenario where he's like, hey, I think I want to acquire this property and it's going to be Q1, it's going to be in Ohio, right? How many conversations would he have to get through with people to be able to them to say, well, I don't know what you want, or I don't know how to help you, or even worse, they say, oh, I'd love to help you do that. Let me get back to you, but they don't know what to get back with you with. So you think people are doing things that are going to be supportive for you, but they're not. And it can take you all of this time to be able to figure that out. And what I'm suggesting to try is by going through all of this process to get this level of clarity, that by the time that you are then taking action, you are so laser focused on what exactly it is you need to do, what exactly it is that you're looking for, that anybody in your world that finds out about it will be able to tell you it's a clear yes or no. Either can it help you with that exact thing or not. And when can I help you by about being able to do it? And that's the kind of responsiveness that you're looking for from other people, other relationships that you're at with from yourself about what it is that I'm doing. And as I go through it day to day. Cool. So give me a quick pulse, guys, of like where we're at. I know we're at time here for today, coming into it. Who feels like they're like, oh, wow, I really need to go back and rewatch this recording to be able to figure it out, or really to get a second blush at what this is. Is that anybody in here? A little bit, Leah? Yeah? Feeling like this would be important? Okay, cool. I encourage you to do that and to go through it. Remember, this was just one piece when we looked at how was Robert, remember when we got through this, right? This was one piece of specificity. When we originally talked about a goal of a Q1, finding a property in Ohio, we said, great, how you need to do that? We think we need to do that from a deal flow. We had all the different ways we could get to a deal flow. From the one way that we would get to a deal flow, then we started breaking it down to specificity of talking to a network of what does that actually mean, important for action steps that we can take, and where do they fall for us in terms of priority. And if Robert wanted to, what he would be able to do then is go back to his drawing board after he finishes everything with talking to network, and then go back to his drawing board that says, great, now I'm going to go to cold approach, solicit potential offers. And I'm going to do another Eisenhower box around that. How am I going to do this? What's going to be important for me and urgent, etc. as we go through each one of those. So he'd actually end up with essentially a game plan, a full plan that would tell him, if I want to drive deal flow, if I use my Eisenhower boxes, I'm going to be able to tell you what are the important and urgent things that I must be doing this week to be able to drive the critical tasks that I need done and these channels to be able to hit my goal. If that sounds like a lot of work, try not doing it and see how long and how much energy you have to spend doing it to get there. Yeah? Cool. Great part about this, guys, is this work right here. Not super exciting to do in a vacuum on your own. Highly encourage you to do the work on your own, though, to do the deep thinking on that. And then reach out to your other group members here and share with each other. What did you come up with? Take 30, 45 minutes or an hour, whatever you feel comfortable with. Get with somebody else and start talking about, hey, I really want to make sure that my goals are really true SMART goals. I really want to start prioritizing out what are the major action items I need to reach and furtherance of that goal. And then I need to talk about how are my priorities going to outlay inside of any of those categories, just like we did here today. When you share that and you communicate with that with somebody else, that's the way that you actually get the clarity, because you get the feedback about where you think you're being clear, but you're not clear. Everything is clear in your head. Once it comes out of your mouth, I guarantee you're going to be like, that's not good. That's not good enough. That needs to be at a higher level. That didn't meet my standard, but it's got to come out of your mouth in conversation with somebody else. By far and away, the most effective way to be able to do it, to expedite your time through that. Highly invite you guys to interact inside of the Discord channel. I'm actually inside of the Discord channels now too. And I'm going to be actively monitoring those and participating in those Discord channels. So please get inside of the Discord channel, especially as it comes to rural life. Any questions or pieces that come up with that, I'm going to try to be helping as much as I can and facilitate those conversations. It's also the best place to be able to connect with each other about like, hey, what are we doing in between sessions? So awesome, guys. Hope you have a fantastic week. Look forward to seeing you here all next week. As you guys get the emails come through here, please spread the word about this group and the kinds of work that we're doing in this group if you found today to be valuable. So that way the people that you care about in your life can also benefit from this type of education and intentional thinking. So thank you, guys. Have a great week.